Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a really special guest, Marino Rainberg, experienced sorcerer, occultist, and ceremonial magician. It's an honor to have you, Marino.
Yeah, good to be back on, guys. Thanks for the interview again, the second interview I'll be doing specifically for you guys. And yeah, pleasure to be on board.
We're glad to have you here. Do you want to sort of get people up to date on what we're doing, Dmitry? This is going to be a special kind of episode.
So today we are going to use mind reading ability of Marino to kind of delve into the mind of famous occultist and controversial figure Damien Eccles, and we're gonna find out what Marino will figure by his mind reading technique about the day 3 children were apparently murdered by Damien Eccles, and we're gonna find out did he really murder them using this technique. So this is all kind of something controversial nobody else did before, and it's an honor to have Marino here and do this. So Marino, can you say something about the technique you are using?
Yeah, on my own YouTube channel, I have a separate playlist in which I give several examples. And the simplest way to put it is that this technique, you can do it superficially or you can do it in depth. And how it works, and especially people that are knowledgeable on magic will be familiar with this at a basic level. Mind delving, the way that I invented this technique is specifically essentially almost shaking hands with someone's, in essence, shaking hands with someone's spirit, so their astral body. And what you're doing is the equivalent of it's like essentially sticking a flash drive into a computer and then requesting data. And people in general, your astral body records every single thing you do, every thought that goes through your mind, every little thing. So you can at any given moment, based on the default, how should I put it, requirements or the factors that play a role, just like in pretty much every magical technique for any sorcerer, is your level of strength and how sound of a mind you are, etc. Those are all things that will play a role. Because it is possible that if you want to read someone's mind by connecting with their astral body, it's possible for the person to essentially reject the premise of that. But me being who I am, I can easily delve into anyone's mind without having to ask for permission or anything like that. Nothing. I don't need any of that. So I essentially just go in, I request what I want to request, and I can see everything and anything. And in terms of what it's like, I explained that in that playlist specifically, especially if you watch the videos in order. But shortly summarized, like I said, I can request any kind of information, whether it's generally speaking, so generic, platonic, or really in-depth regarding a specific case. Just like every magical technique, just like everything in the world, it does have its hypothetical flaws. That's why I'm saying hypothetical. It doesn't really have any flaws. Any flaws are purely hypothetical. And the simplest way to put it is, if bluntly put, your target, the person whose mind you're going to read, is mentally unstable, just outright bona fide insane worst case scenario. Because when you connect with their astral body, it's like when you touch someone that's physically ill, you're going to feel that the person has a fever or that the person has this. You're going to feel any physical anomalies. So if you're inexperienced, then and you connect with someone that's mentally ill, you're essentially going to see the way the world sees the person through their lens, and that includes events. And if you're inexperienced, then you're going to take those events as real, when in actuality they're delusions. The person is essentially seeing you're essentially seeing the world, the deluded world the person lives in, instead of actual reality, factual reality. That's essentially the gist of it. But again, I've done this, like, hypothetically speaking, countless times. I think I've done it like past 100 times for people, like for myself, for people in every imaginable scenario. So yeah, that's essentially the gist of it.
May I ask if you do you work in tandem with any other entities for this?
No, this is something I invented purely for myself. back when I still had the logo, I am the dragon. So back when I still worked with Yahweh's power, so direct God power. Yeah, so I've already surpassed all of that. Now it's simply I'm more refined. But this technique essentially, I created it out of sheer raw power. Essentially, it wasn't, I didn't really intend even on creating it. I simply willed myself to see what someone was doing, or I wanted to see what they were doing in general, so their general state of mind. And yeah, that's essentially how it came into existence. And I simply polished and refined it as I went along. And I just immediately dove in because I know I have the strength to do anything. So I read the minds of serial killers, people left and right, you name it. Another thing that I need to mention as well is that this technique primarily is you're essentially based on my definition, based on what I said, the short summarized definition is primarily practical, the most practical for measuring someone's overall state of mind in terms of how they go about life in relation to a specific situation, because you're seeing essentially their astral, their spiritual state of mind, because they're, for example, one or two people have coined the term, can I see what the person is doing specifically as in the material world? And that is a lot trickier and a lot harder to do. I can do it, but it is a lot more difficult, but not based on not reliant on any kind of factor such as strength or anything like that. No, it's not about that. The thing is that just like with spirits, when you essentially mind delve and you seriously want to know what the person is doing in the material world, as in the so-called real world, the way the normal people, average person refers to it. So for example, I took a cab an hour ago, and I want to know where my cab driver is. As in, hey, where is he? Is he at home? Is he here? Is he there? I literally need to come to the astral plane that is the closest to the material world. And that plane is so annoyingly inhospitable and so unpleasant to be in that, generally speaking, when you're there, you just want to leave right away. And it has nothing to do with how strong you are or anything like that. It's simply like being in a room with a really bad smell. Doesn't matter how high your tolerance level is. But yeah, I have done that, and I have indeed seen what people were doing in the material plane. And I even get like a time, usually based on the tri concept of how God created the world, and the very concept of mental, astral, physical, the three planes of existence that everything in existence has to go through to manifest materially. You have to follow that outline. It's like a wave essentially. And I noticed that, for example, I see what the person was doing in the past half hour. So, for example, I literally, when I am so close and I can see what the person is doing materially, everything is more vivid, and it's like I'm actually physically there. Even more so compared to when you're simply looking at something astrally, because that's also vivid, but this is like, think super ultra vivid in a material plane. But at the same time, it's very inhospitable. You feel very uncomfortable. It's like being outside your own physical body if you're not used to it at all. And I usually get like a time frame. For example, I wanted to see what the person was doing, and then the person is in my time zone, and let's just say it's 10 p.m. for me, and I saw, for example, if I ask as in, what time frame is this in, I get like 9:30, 9:45. I was like, okay, so the person was doing this 15 minutes ago, and the person is most likely still doing this. Like, for example, the person is asleep or something like that. So yeah, that is really high end advanced. But yeah, I can also do that. But the primary purpose is to simply see what someone is doing spiritually, and that's already enough. For example, if it's the average person, you'll simply see them going about their day, and you're not supposed to take it literally. For example, you see the person going to the supermarket, the person simply going home, sorting things out in their living room. It's simply metaphorical. It simply essentially shows you what the person's life is about at the moment, at least within like a time range or a radius of a couple of months. This is what daily life looks like for the person. This is what's going on in the person's life. So you need to not take it literally, but your own intuition and your level of experience will tell you what you can take literally and what is metaphorical, what's purely symbolic. And you essentially know what the person is doing. It's like high-end espionage, occult espionage. So if I want to know, for example, what someone is doing, what they're up to, etc., I can easily know. I can know superficially, little 2 seconds, boom, I'm like, yes, okay. And I saw what the person was briefly doing, and I know what my mind translates it, and I know or converts it. And I know, I say, oh, okay, so the person was simply, this is what the status update is on that person's life. This is what they're doing, and this is how they operate, etc. Referring to what I was saying earlier, it things that generally speaking, I mentioned that in one of my mind delving videos as well. When you're more experienced, how you'll know that, for example, what you're seeing isn't quote unquote real due to mental illness or being severely mentally compromised. When mind delving, it's like watching a YouTube video. The more skilled you are and experienced, and the stronger you are as a magician compared to your target, the clearer the image will be. It's like watching a YouTube video in 1080 pixels regarding resolution. Everything is HD. You're seeing everything like a movie. You can pause, you can rewind, you can forward. But if the person is, for example, mentally compromised, then you're generally speaking going to see it in like a lower resolution, like 360p. It's going to be slightly hazy, etc. And when someone is so mentally compromised that they have seriously lost touch with reality up to a good extent, like 50% as an example, then you're going to see weird things. Like, for example, a glitch. You're going to see that the so-called video you're watching has like a red outline or a white outline or an outline in a different color. Your senses will immediately tell you this is not real. This is what the person is seeing this in their own head because the person is severely mentally, compromised. But this is not what life is, what's actually going on for the person. And you can push past that. Like I said, you need to will yourself to push past the illness, and that requires more strength and experience. Last thing that I was going to note is that let me see, what was I going to say again regarding this is that some people have a natural barrier. They have a natural they're naturally resilient to any kind of spiritual influence. They're simply, it's just a character trait. They were born that way. Okay, the benefit of these people is that they're stable. The drawback is that they'll never grow past what they are as a person. So they literally remain their entire life completely fixed in their place, almost like a tree rooted to the ground, which is almost near impossible to uproot. And these people, if you try to read their mind, any kind of magical working, it's not just this, any magical working will almost, if you're just the average sorcerer and you carry out a ritual for example, influencing this person, almost always the 90% chance, 9 out of 10 times the ritual will fail. And if you look into it, what's the reason? You'll see that. I know back in the day when I was a beginner, I had someone as a target, not in a negative way. And that's the answer I essentially got from the spirit that I assigned the task to. And I did my readings as usual, and they indicated the exact same thing. And I said to myself, wow, okay, person has a natural barrier. Now it's years later, I long forgot about that person, but just for the sake of an example, I was working with a customer and I was teaching him the same thing. And I essentially, I simply chose this person deliberately because I was like, I need to find a difficult person. Who's difficult? I was like, oh yeah, that person from years ago, lifetimes ago for me. Yeah, yeah, I remember now. And I essentially respectively read the person, and I could easily, at my level now, I could easily break past the barrier. I was like, I didn't see a barrier. I was like, no, I'm going. Beam. And I saw everything, and I was like, oh, okay, this is nice. Like, yeah, the person has a strong barrier. On a scale of 0 to 10, the barrier is like an 8, 8.5, a 9 even at its strongest. And the other person, again, the person was a beginner, inexperienced, etc. And the person wasn't also exactly the strongest. The person had difficulty getting through. The person could not get through. The person just either saw 3 barriers instead of just 1, or the person just short-circuited. The person saw like being in a plain open meadow or a field, things that did not correlate with what you're supposed to see with the person's actual life. And now, thanks to my training and everything, the person can do it. And I was like, I'm going to show you before and after comparison. Okay, this is what you pay me for. Boop. Okay, see how strong you are now? We're going to do all the techniques over again and you'll see the difference. Well, like you saw now, without any issues, You were able to break past that person's mind, the barrier. You saw everything that that person was doing, etc. You were like, yeah, I see it now. Everything is so clear. I'm not even tired. Excellent. Because the first time a technique like this will definitely take it out of you. So yeah, that's essentially the gist of it.
You describe the process kind of like a forensics expert, really. It's interesting.
Yeah. And something I can also additionally note, and something I've said in my mind delving related videos, it's like when you socialize with someone, in the long term, their energy rubs off on you. Your astral body essentially hugs the other person's astral body, and you can imagine if you're like delving into the mind of someone that was seriously disturbed, the person had a myriad, a plethora of negative emotions, then if you're not strong enough, these emotions will rub off on you and it will semi to borderline traumatize you, and you will feel really horrible, and it will take you a good while to recover. That's something that you definitely need to be mindful of. And you'll notice the difference when you delve into the mind of someone normal or someone happy, someone that's in a moderate to good state of mind, mental health is decent or above average. It's going to be pleasant. It's like simply like smelling perfume or a breath of fresh air. It's going to be relaxed, like being in the park and, for example, you're all alone, it's nice and windy. All conditions are near picture perfect. It's not too hot, not too cold. Everything is like almost ideal. It's going to be pleasant to be there. But when you delve into the mind of, for example, someone that was so seriously mentally disturbed that they had like, for example, 5 or 6 mental disorders, it's like literally going to Chernobyl, honestly, or what I imagine what going to Chernobyl would be like, and being exposed to high levels of radiation without a radioactive suit on. It's like you're literally somewhere where everything wants to kill you. Everything is hostile towards you. Every fiber of the person's being is hostile towards you. Every thought essentially either wants to hurt you or similar. And yeah, needless to say, you need to be really strong to be able to not let it affect you. But the average person, nah, the average person will seriously be traumatized. I know this from firsthand experience because I once had a level 6, level 7 sorcerer, like on a scale of 0 to 10 level of strength, do this. And the target in question was essentially a woman that was sexually abused, just outright raped. And due to being intoxicated and being unable to resist or fight back. And I can easily handle it. It doesn't faze me. I took a look at everything in detail, everything HD. I saw everything in 4K, high plasma resolution, everything. I could forward everything, fast forward, pause, everything. But the person, when I asked the person to do so, the person needed literally an hour to come back to their senses because the person was absolutely traumatized. The person was just sitting in front of me when I called the person through video call, and the person was just like shocked, like they saw their mother get run over by a car or something. And the person just told me what they saw. And I could clearly tell that the person was really deeply affected by what they saw. And the person didn't smile one bit. The person just sat like this and looked at me like, and the person was immediately melancholic. The person was completely semi-depressed. And it really took the person like an hour or so before they slowly started smiling and regaining their composure. And I told the person, you think this is for the faint of heart? This is something seriously. This is not a joke. This is something you really need to be strong army for this. Otherwise, it's gonna traumatize you. Yeah, that's essentially it.
Thank you for that detailed explanation of what it is that you do. So before we get started, as we mentioned before, and everything, he's gonna be delving into the mind of Damien Eccles. I'm pretty sure most of our audience is at least somewhat familiar with Damien Eccles. I think he might be the largest occult YouTuber right now. So we're fortunate in that Marino actually isn't all too familiar with the case at all. We're gonna be discussing the case more in detail after he does the mind delving, because we just want to kind of preserve that non-bias position while he does his work. So when you're ready to get started, just say.
Yeah, yeah. I'm deliberately going to narrate everything I see and explain it while I'm seeing it, because again, I can do this with eyes open, eyes closed. I'm just for good measure's sake going to close my eyes, because when you close your eyes, it's nothing but darkness, so you can see the image completely. But I can also easily do this with my eyes open. It's kind of like in the movie Iron Man, when Iron Man is in his suit, I'm seeing like a hologramic everything in front of me, and I can
Okay,
easily
and
see
then,
what's going on.
oh, I'm sorry. I do want to just help you for targeting
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
of interest here, which is May 5th, 1993,
Mm-hmm.
when Damien Eccles is suspected of murdering 3 boys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Um. Yeah. So go ahead. Just give me um an exact let's just say a question specifically in terms of a question-based description or a description-based question.
Sure.
Yeah, and just give me basic details like miscellaneous details, the day when this took place, and what question exactly you want, or what the answer, what question you want to formulate that you want me to look into.
Sure. So I would like to know what exactly Damien Eccles felt, experienced, what he saw, and what he did in the early evening hours of May 5th, 1993. In
Okay,
this was in Arkansas. This was in, I forget the name of the town. Oh,
that's okay.
Memphis, West Memphis,
Okay,
Arkansas.
okay,
West Memphis, Arkansas.
okay. Um, and what was the date again?
May 5th, 1993, in the early evening hours.
Okay. Essentially, when he was suspected of allegedly killing these boys.
Correct.
Okay. Um. Hmm. Hold on. West Memphis, Tennessee, or Arkansas?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay. Which is okay. And what was the date again?
May 5th, 1993, between, say, 4 and 10 p.m.
Early evening, between 4 and 10 p.m. Like I said, usually I don't need any of this, but just for good measure's sake, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the question essentially formulated is, you would like to know what Damien Eccles was doing when he was in West Memphis, Arkansas on May the 5th, 1993, in the early evening between 4 and 10 p.m. approximately.
Yes.
Okay. Mhm. I will delve into the mind of Damien Eccles. That's his name, right? Pronounced Damien Eccles?
Correct. Damien
Okay.
Eccles. Yes.
Yeah, yes, the now occultist Damien Eccles. And I will see what he was doing in West Memphis, Arkansas, on May the 5th, 1993, in the early evening, approximately between 4 and 10 p.m. Okay. I will see exactly what Damien Eccles was doing on the aforementioned date and within the aforementioned time frame. I'll be counting down from 10 to 0, and when I reach 0, I will see what he was doing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, why? Wow, wow. Okay, yeah. Listen, right off the bat, um, it's essentially like I'm him. Okay, it's like a first person. So I'm not seeing Damien itself. I mean, I can see him, but it primarily takes place through his eyes. Um, and his astral body is also essentially next to me. Usually you get this additional information when you interact with their astral body the way that I explained earlier. His power level on a scale of 0 to 10 is a 5. Okay, he's like mid-level, a mid-level sorcerer. And he's not really hostile. He's more apathetic towards the whole thing. Now, anyways, the image starts with, it's like before 10 p.m., 8 p.m. or something like that. But there is some form of, he's slightly disoriented. He doesn't really pay attention to the time. And before, I'm essentially seeing it through his eyes, and he's standing on a front porch. Yeah, he is indeed in West Memphis. But he also, like I said, he's disoriented because there's a confusion between West Memphis, Tennessee and West Memphis, Arkansas for some reason. And again, you can tell that he's disoriented. He doesn't really, he's not really mentally all there. But the second I started, I saw flashes of occult rituals briefly in the background, but in a more classical, cheesy way, like Baphomet and like almost, hypothetically speaking, satanic stuff. Okay. Now show me what Damien Eccles was doing specifically. Okay. Yeah, he's in a deranged state of mind, honestly, and he is thinking about killing these kids. I think, based on what I'm seeing here, it took place after he committed the deed. So it's likely that he did commit the deed. He essentially, the flashes that I'm seeing in his mind are that he essentially thought about dismembering these children with an axe or some kind of handheld weapon. He's holding these kids by the head like this, a couple of boys. And it's on the street, but it's completely deserted. It's street lights are yellowish, and it's nighttime, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., before 10 in any case, or absolute latest, like before it hits 10. Show me something else. Now his entire mind is going black. Yeah, no, he was seriously mentally, he was really in an alternate state of mind. This guy was not in his right mind. He was really just, wow. Now, literally, his entire mind is black and dark, and it's like he's lost all touch with reality, and it keeps flashing, going back to to the empty street that he's on, while he's still reminiscing about doing what he did. But he is coherent enough to the point where he is either thinking about, or he disposed of blood-soaked clothing, because he did have some blood on him, as well as his weapon. There is also like a park or some kind of forested area nearby. And now he's thinking, I need to get out of here. I need to get the fuck out of here. Okay. Now I'm assuming that the other things you wanted to know is just like you relate to me through email. You wanted to know, what happened during the verdict and how did he manage to get out of prison and whatnot. Is that correct?
No, just what happened the day
Just
of the
what
murder.
happened.
He claims innocence. So
okay.
Okay. We'll get into that. We know how he got out. We'll get into those details later, but
okay.
The forest that you describe is accurate. The boys were found in Robin Hood Forest, or Robin Hood Hills, which is a forested area.
Yeah, like I said, okay, pause fishing. Yeah, I can easily do this. Like I said, I can easily pause the fishing. I can get back to it at any given moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's essentially what I saw. And like I said, he is really, really he was really beside himself, as in the literal definition of being besides oneself. You're like, so the vision started off with him being out late at night, not too late, before midnight, definitely essentially before 10 p.m., like between when the sun sets and between and midnight. So like 9 p.m. And on that specific day, things were relatively quiet. There was no like, there weren't really like any people on the street, or there wasn't a lot going on around him. So it also gives away that is both literal and metaphorical. It stands for clandestinity. He was simply very clandestine in what he did. And he, and like I said, the second I connected with him, his astral body was standing right next to me, and I saw how strong he is as a magician in general. But yeah, when I look at him, also the way that he spiritually presents himself, he is definitely not someone that is like all there or coherent. No offense to him, but there is no hostility. Sometimes I get hostility from people like, "What the fuck are you doing in my mind? Get out, blah blah blah," stuff like that. But he's completely apathetic, so he's like neutral. He just distances himself, but it's also because he can spiritually see who I am, so he has no say in the matter, and he like just does this. I'm like, yeah, whatever, fine. And I saw like occult ritualistic flashes. So honestly, based on what I saw, I would say that what he did was ritualistically motivated, but definitely not in a good way. He was like mentally compromised, most likely by or through occult forces, because I did see like brief like satanic mass kind of like the typical cheesy satanic mass kind of ritual with the inverted pentagram and all that crap. I saw that briefly flash in his head, but literally only for like half a second, 2 or 3 rituals, and with nothing but darkness and blacks around it. And then he simply just walks the street. And when he walks the street, I saw him think about essentially what he did. Like he like I think he tried cutting one of the boys their heads off, but he did kill them, and he was simply holding one of them by their head like forcefully. And the boys they tried resisting somewhat, but yeah, obviously to no avail. And after he just kept walking, and yeah, like I said, I saw a park or a forest of some sort, and you can't really make out a lot of details because it was nighttime, but it is generally speaking quiet, and it looks okay. It's a nice looking park, nothing fancy, but also nothing bad. Um, and that's when I saw him. He was either thinking about or he actually disposed of blood-soaked clothing, because his like stomach and random parts of his body, but usually more like around his waist, chest area, as well as the weapon, um, they were soaked in blood. And he the reason I'm saying that he either thought about doing it or did it is because in his mind he can't make a distinction. So he did one of the two in any case, and after he did that, or after he thought about doing that, I literally heard him say, "I need to get out of here. I need to get the fuck out of here." And he essentially made himself scarce. And like I said, also before that, again, a typical strong trait of his. It's the first time that I've seen someone do something like that, or that something happened to someone like that. He was really mentally just wow. Just like everything literally went black. It's like all the lights went out, but usually like a rolling blackout. I'm assuming you know what I mean by rolling blackout. It's like when light goes out in a neighborhood and you can see it coming, like pop, 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 and all the lights go out and it goes in the other direction. And he was standing in the middle of the street, and there was just nothingness briefly, and then it's like the lights go on again, pop, 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 and then it goes off again, pop, 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 pop. And I was like, yeah, but this is purely metaphorical. This simply stands for his heavily compromised state of mind, like just nothingness, like oblivion. He literally was just like mentally whoosh.
Empty.
Yeah,
Empty.
yeah, severely mentally compromised. This is not like a thingy, a this is not like empty in some kind of idiotic new ager way, like um like meditating or anything like that, as in I'm emptying my mind. No, this is seriously like, this is some, on a scale of 0 to 10, let's just say a 9 level. This is 9 levels of mental illness, because he was really like gone mentally, like literally he was off by 1 point of being completely gone mentally. And out of all the hundreds of people I've read and all the times I've done it, it is the first time that I've seen this. And yeah, that's essentially it. So go ahead.
Yeah, that was amazing. And there's definitely some things that add up. And I know you don't know that much about the case.
Nope.
You were pretty spot on about a couple things. Wow. I'm really impressed. Do you? I don't know if you want to do this, but there were also two other accomplices. Do you find it might be helpful if you were to delve into the mind of either of the two accomplices that were there?
Yeah,
Because they
that's
might
not.
have been more mentally sound.
Yeah, that's not an issue. That's why I asked that earlier.
Okay.
But since we're on that subject, something I also mentioned in another one of my mind delving videos, specifically regarding the mechanics of how everything works, is that you can still hear me okay, right?
Sorry.
You can still hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just double checking. I'm hearing a ringing in my ears, but it's an astral ringing. Usually you hear like a ring in your ears when you undertake heavy-handed spiritual activity. Sometimes, not always.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, including customers of mine, have told me that as well after an exercise. Um, yeah. No. Anyways, what I wanted to say is in that video in which I explained the mechanics of it, like in detail as well, other than the video in which I already mentioned about the so-called flaw that you need to be mindful of mental illness and whatnot, that what you saw is actually legit. And like I said, in terms of what I described, see the difference? Everything was like HD, like 1080, 2160 pixels. Everything was crystal clear. Despite the fact that he was mentally compromised, he was still coherent. As in, this is not that, hey, he didn't know what he was doing. He was well aware of what he was doing. But it's just that the motivations, what prompted him to do it emotionally and mentally, came from a really bad place. But I didn't look into in detail. Like I said, I just said purely what I saw, and that was like it's ritually motivated, most likely, ritualistically. Everything was still clear. Now, anyways, another thing that people also might be wondering about, and like I said, I explained that in the other video that I described earlier, or that I mentioned or brought up, is that in case you want to know stuff, physical things like names and information and stuff like that, because usually some people might be tempted to say, okay, you can easily see that. Then nope, that's not how it works, because there's a clear-cut difference. Okay, things like your name, for example, these were labels that society slapped on you, bluntly put, because people need to call you something. Society needs a name. You need to have an actual name that in order to function optimally in society. But your name is not what your physical name, your name in the material world is not your physical name. It's not your spiritual name. We all have names, but it's a completely different thing that I'm not going to get into. We all have spiritual names, but names do not work in the same fashion as they do in the material realm. In the material realm, it's no different than, for example, going to a store, you're picking out a product. The product has a label with everything, with a name that's usually alphanumerical as a means of identification. In that same context, society at a global level, everybody has names. It's like you need to literally, it's like a prerequisite, honestly. It's a requirement, the default requirement. You need a name to function in society. So people have something that they can address you by, they can call you by, and it just goes on. But that's not what your name is spiritually, not on the astral plane. That's not your name. Okay. My name in this lifetime is Moreno Ravenberg. In my past life, it was something else. And that's not what my name is spiritually. That's simply what I want to make clear. So for using mind delving, just like I said in the beginning, specifically, primarily, it's purely to view the astral, okay? What someone essentially, their state of mind and the actions that manifested in physical reality. But if you want to ask, hey, what was the person's name? What was this? What was that? What was the street that they were on? That's not how it works, because even the street in question, for example, like what, 50 years ago, it had a different name. What I'm saying is that physical information like that, or information of a material nature that is non-permanent in nature, mind you, non-permanent, so it is essentially disposable, because I could easily change my name legally. Tomorrow, if I want to be called Bill Paxton, I can call myself Bill Paxton, and I can literally legally change it. And from henceforth, society will call me Bill Paxton. On my passport, it's going to be Bill Paxton. I can change it whenever I want, more or less, in a matter of speaking. I can even do so non-legally. If I move to a different country, I want people to call me Adam West. I can easily be called Adam West. Okay, and people will call me Adam. And if people hear that my name is Marino Wavenberg, people are going to say, oh my God, what? You know, because people know me by, hey, Adam. Yeah, and what I'm saying is that this information of this kind that is highly susceptible to change is not applicable. It's NA. It's non-applicable. It's non-valid. Using mind delving, you can't directly see that. Okay, it's a lot trickier, and it would require a lot more elaborate researching, if you will, and poking and prodding and thorough experimenting and then testing and confirming on, hey, is that actually correct, blah, 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 etc., etc. And after enough so-called trials, you can be sure, as in, yep, every single time it was correct. So you're sure that, you know, the technique holds water and it's fully 100% has merit in that context. The reason you can see other things of a physical nature, such as someone's appearance and stuff like that, and for example, a specific landscape, is because that stuff is usually permanent in nature. Okay, the way you were born and the way that you look like, you generally speaking cannot change that. You can see, and you can say, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll go out and get plastic surgery, and you can drastically alter your appearance. My point is, you literally cannot undo what you looked like, essentially, as a person when you were born. Your natural body shape and stuff like that, the way you were born and the way you grew up, everything, your physique, the characteristics that define you, okay, your hair color, your this, your that, etc., 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 stuff like that is materially speaking permanent. It's not doable. For example, and that includes ethnicity. Someone that's, for example, black or Caucasian, so white, or you name it, something, Hispanic, you name it. Stuff like that, you can't unchange it. You can't unchange it. Even if they came up with like a so-called technique where you can literally alter your DNA to such a degree where you can essentially change your ethnicity, your race, then even then, it does not take away the fact that you were born Caucasian or Hispanic or African and you grew up that way. So that is permanent. That's like set in stone. And that's why that can be seen, because that takes place on the astral, and it's also concrete in the physical world because it's not prone to change or prone to dismissal of any kind. Yeah, for example, something that I can give as an example is, for example, details that people have lying around the house. If someone were to ask me, hey, check out what my house looks like, I'll be able to see like 90% in general what their house looks like, but there will be some minor or small alterations, because like things like a cup on a table, stuff like that is obviously dismissible, because you can throw the cup away, you can do this, you can do that, you name it. You can put another cup, another glass, it just goes on and on and on. Stuff like that is just prone to dismissal. And usually I see if someone owns something for a good while, because the astral energy is still hanging around there. For example, I was watching someone, I was simply watching someone in their bedroom, and I saw a fan, and then the fan disappeared after like 3 seconds. And I said, and when I called the person, I was like, I just briefly took a look at your place. You used to have a fan, didn't you? He was like, yeah, I had a fan, but I don't anymore, like a year ago or something. I was like, yeah, I saw that. I saw you briefly have a fan and then it disappeared, which means that you, generally speaking, it means that you owned it once, if not the previous owner. Point in cases there was a fan there once and someone disposed of it after a while. And that's why I saw that. So that's just to let people know how all of this works, because people might be tempted to think that it's like so easy, laughably easy, just like buying a cup of Starbucks coffee or something. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to pay attention to all of these details. I can't just easily say, oh, okay, so I'm just going to see exactly what the names are of all of these perpetrators in question, first and last name, and where they lived, and blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't work that way. No. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
So,
and it doesn't work the way things work on our physical plane at all. You know, it
nope.
works differently. So makes sense.
Yeah.
So if it's okay with you, Marino, can we try one of the accomplices?
Yeah, no problemo.
Wonderful. So let's go with Jesse Miskelly. Jesse Miskelly, what was he doing between the hours of 4 and 10 p.m. May 5th, 1993 in West Memphis, Arkansas?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the name again?
Jesse Miskelly.
Jesse with an I or with a Y? Assuming I-E?
I think it's Jesse.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Miskelly.
yes. How do you spell Muskelly?
Miskelly.
Oh, Jesse Muskelly. Okay. Okay. And Jesse Muskelly was an accomplice as well. So the same question, same time format, same date, but just from his perspective.
Yes, please.
Okay. 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 Show me what Jesse Muskelly was doing, and in the same time format, so approximately between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. in the same location, West Memphis, Arkansas. When I reach 0 in my own personal timer. Again, Jesse Muskelly in West Memphis, Arkansas, between 4 and 10 p.m. approximately. And whether he has any connection or relation to the murders. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, also first person view, like a first person shooter, okay. Yeah, Jesse Muskelly, he's also in West Memphis, Arkansas, but he doesn't literally, he lived like a distance away or something, because he's in a more urbanized area, like more towards the center, like 3/4 towards the center of West Memphis. Okay, the time frame is the same. And now he's saying, I'm sorry, what was the person's name again? The person that committed the thingy?
Jesse Miskelly.
No.
Oh,
No.
sorry.
What was the person that committed the murders? The person that was indicted.
Well, the Damien Eccles is believed to be the ringleader.
Yeah, Damien. Yeah, Damien. Sorry, Damien Eccles. Okay.
But Jesse
Mhm.
Miskelly is
Yeah, I
false.
understand. Yeah, he was an accomplice. I understand. No. The reason I'm asking, because he just said, I hope that Damien got away with whatever he was doing. Something similar. It's like almost incoherent. The reason I'm asking is because I heard him say the name, but I briefly also forgot. It's like usually
Sure.
when you read someone's mind, the energy fades. It's like having a dream, and the energy just dissipates if you definitely don't write down everything that you put, essentially. So I heard him say that. Okay, it's the same thing, essentially. Oh, okay. He said I told him where those kids were. Yeah, and that's essentially it. There's not a lot. This guy, he's a bit more coherent, and I think he's smoking a cigarette. Ew. But he was like a further end away. He was more towards the center. That's where he was located, of West Memphis, and in an urbanized area, specifically. I'm seeing cars drive past, just the usual urban activity. And that's all I'm getting from him. For the rest, his mind is like completely empty. He has no other thoughts on the subject in question. First thing he said is, I hope Damien got away with what he was doing. And the second thing he says is, he was thinking this. He didn't say it out loud. He was thinking this. I told him where those kids were. And now he's saying, search them right. Blasted, stupid fucking kids. Ugh. I hate children. And that is all. I'm getting the spiritual message that's it. There's nothing else really. So yeah, end session. Done.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, so right off the bat, Jesse Miskelly was known, and actually he was on a probation at the time of the murders for beating a young girl up, and he was well known for bullying young children and physically beating them. So the other thing is that So Jesse Miskelly actually confessed to participating and helping Damien in the murders. He confessed several times, and he told the investigators that he had been drinking a whiskey bottle, which was left at the scene in Robin Hood Hills near the bodies, and the police went and found that the exact broken whiskey bottle that he described.
Okay.
So that's kind of part of what you were saying about leading them to find the crime scene.
Yeah. Based on everything, I would say this was after he was done with all of that, not before, obviously. But he primarily, his mentality was essentially to, so to speak, pin the blame and to direct everything towards Damien Eccles. He literally he didn't want to be seen as the main henchman or the culprit, but he was heavily involved, and he has well, based on what I said, obviously, I could feel it. He has a strong, honestly, very strong disliking for children and anybody that's essentially not an adult.
Yeah.
And he was smoking a cigarette. I also saw that he's the kind that likes to smoke and drink, I think, honestly. But what I specifically saw is that he was smoking a cigarette. But he was more mentally coherent, honestly. And he was also more relaxed. And yeah, that's essentially it, honestly. Another thing that I was going to say is that he also might be other than just pivoting blame away, he also might essentially be deluded, honestly, in the sense that he views himself as how should I put it? He has a victimhood mentality, in the sense that he does not want essentially to. He doesn't want to be seen as someone that he doesn't want to be seen as someone that is to blame. Essentially, let's just put it that way. He wants someone else to bear the brunt of whatever negative activities he's engaged with. So someone that essentially wants to pin the blame on others, to essentially shove it in their shoes. And the image here was also a little bit hazy, not just literally for 1%. He was also, I almost want to say it was almost like he was high or he was off something. In any case, there was a rush of emotions. It was like the aftermath of a rush of emotions. It's like when you run, for example, hundreds of meters, and then you're tired, and then you're just relieved, and essentially, like the deed is done. That's the mentality he had. And yeah, that's essentially it.
Wow. That was good, man.
Yeah.
So I don't want to push you. I'm thrilled with what you're doing right now. This is crazy. But if you want, there is one more accomplice.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to get any more information on the third accomplice?
Yeah. I hypothetically speaking can do this all day, honestly. Not an issue for me.
Well, thank you.
I'm not limited in any way. If I want to know something about someone, I'm just openly stating this for people that essentially sometimes, if it's required, for people that do business with me on something, this is what I do if I want to know what they're up to. I want to know exactly what their status is, what their state of mind is, as in, hey, for example, if, I don't know, for an extensive amount of time, I don't really get a coherent answer through our chosen means of communication, like email or something, I'm going to look into what you're doing and you can't stop me. Oh yeah, and before you give me the information, another thing that I would like to say as well is that you need to, hold on, because the sun's already setting. Let me just briefly turn on the light. Yeah. Get in there. So hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, before you give me the other information, I need to thingy something with people. The way I work, all of my occult and magical techniques are based on logic and rationale. So the mechanism behind all of it, the simple concept of 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. So I'm just saying, for people that will, for example, be skeptical and say that this is wrong, blah, 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 it's just far-fetched or something like that. Yeah, I don't care either way. But my point is, for people like that, in a matter of speaking, this, just like all my other techniques and everything, the concept of being wrong doesn't apply. Like I said, the same way that if you feel someone's physical body, you're going to go like this. Okay. If they're hot, you're going to feel that they're hot factually. If they're cold, you're going to feel that they're cold. Okay. If they're thinking about something, you're going to see that something's bothering them. And it just goes on. If they're angry, if they're sad, you can tell because it's staring you dead in the face. This is literally the guys whose thing you gave me that you wanted me to look into. Okay, I literally, just like I explained in the beginning, connected with their astral bodies, and everything I saw is factual. That's what literally took place for these guys spiritually. Okay, that's essentially the state of mind they were in relation to your given inquiry, your given question, specifically relating to that location and that time, and the thoughts that were going through their head, and all the energies that were flowing through them emotionally as well as overall spiritually. So the whole concept of being quote unquote being wrong, that's non-existent. That doesn't apply. Okay. The same way that 2 + 2 always = 4. I have 2 apples, another 2 apples, 4 apples, the law of logic. So there is no there is no possibility for being wrong in any way, shape, or form. Okay. If it turns out that it was something else, for example, with the guys that you gave me with either Damien or Jesse, then something else is up. My point is that was their state of mind, and the chance of that not being the case is really, really, really like less than 1% low. But my point is something else is up then, but that's not a possibility because this is literally what their state of mind, the state of mind they were in relation to this respective situation and event. That's literally what they were thinking. That's what they felt spiritually, mentally. That's the state of mind they were in. That's it. So yeah.
Thank you. That's a very thorough explanation. So the third accomplice was named Jason Baldwin.
Jason or Jason?
Jason, Jason Baldwin.
I'm sorry. How do you spell Jason?
Jason.
Oh, sorry, Jason. Okay, yeah, Jason Baldwin. Okay.
Jason Baldwin, and the same question. What was Jason Baldwin doing on May 5th, 1993 in West Memphis, Arkansas between the hours of 4 p.m. and 10 p.m.?
Okay. Where's my first? Okay. Okay. Okay, I've already done this twice, so I don't need to go through. That was just for the audience. I don't need to like go with the whole countdown. I'm just gonna do what I usually do. I immediately just dive right into it. Show me what Jason Baldwin was doing in relation to the murders in question of the aforementioned Damien Eccles, etc., and Jesse. On pause. On the respective date in question, May the 5th, 1993, in the early evening between 4 and 10 p.m. So yeah, May the 5th, 1993, between 4 and 10 p.m., Jason Baldwin. Show me what Jason Baldwin, what his state of mind was, his state of affairs, what he was thinking, what he was doing, and what his relation to the murders is. Okay, now, he is in the densest of urban areas, and it is daytime as opposed to the 2 others. Okay, it's like early 4 p.m. or something like that. The sun is slowly starting to set, and he's smack dab in the middle of town, like West Memphis. He's smoking a cigarette as well. I don't know. He's also drinking some kind of alcohol, whiskey. I don't know if it's Jack Daniels or John something. I briefly saw that, but it's unclear. Okay. he's thinking, I'm gonna help Damien take care of some business later, and he also dislikes children. And yeah, something very vulgar as well. He essentially expressed intentions to sexually molest one of the potential victims as a possibility. So he said, maybe I can, do what if one of them is, yeah, if one of them seems appealing, to put it that way. Yeah. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure, of course, what the reason is, if not, but his appearance is essentially, I think, a bald man with a goatee, a white Caucasian bald male with a goatee. I don't know if that's what he actually looks like, but that's what I'm seeing. I don't know why I would be seeing that in his mind if that's not the case.
That's what he looks like now. At the time, he was young. But
yeah, okay. Because a bald guy with a goatee, literally, I don't know, a typical redneck-looking guy. And yeah, he essentially has a tendency towards criminal behavior and even violent criminal behavior. Worst case scenario, when he really gets going. So essentially, I'm seeing his personality, what he's like in terms of temperament. And he's just going about his day. You can clearly tell that this is before the whole event took place, essentially earlier in the day when it was still afternoon. There's a possibility that this might even be before 4 p.m., like literally pre-event, like between 3 and 4 p.m. And yeah, I'm seeing the sun slowly set, but it's still clearly not midday, but like it's still clearly pre-evening. Evening hasn't set in yet. And he's just going about his day, honestly, smoking and drinking and just walking on the street, crossing the street, etc. All of this is metaphorical for him just going about his day. And yeah, that's essentially it. I'm hearing literally that's all. Yeah, end session. But yeah, that's essentially it. That's all I'm getting from him.
Dimitri,
so yeah.
are you still with us? I see Dimitri. Oh, that's you. Okay, there you are.
Fundamentally, like, this is just like Marino's technique, and he's talking what he is saying, so I'm just letting the guy talk.
I was just making sure you didn't fall asleep.
No, I didn't fall asleep at all. I'm just listening.
Okay.
Like, my thing with all of this is, this is really something revolutionary and really, really interesting. And the main thing with me is, like, I am personally interested if you can find out to whom exactly was the ritual dedicated to, what spirits were involved.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I could sense that one of you was going to ask me that. Yeah, I could sense that you guys wanted to know at some point.
I can say right off the bat, it was probably just some generic early 90s white trash satanic panic bullshit, like. But feel free to answer that.
Yeah, no, that's essentially just hold on before I get to that, because I already got the answer, but before I get to that, in relation to this guy Jason Baldwin, yeah, so that's essentially what I saw. Typical redneck looking guy, bald, and he has like a goatee, and he looks like the typical redneck that is definitely up for stirring trouble. He has a very aggressive temperament, or a tendency to just wreak havoc and cause mischief overall. Kind of like the beer chugging, like smoking redneck that I think after hitting it, he also threw his beer on the alongside the street near a gutter or something, and it just smashed into bits. That kind of guy, and it's just him crossing the street and him just looking around, going about his day. But all of this is metaphorical for him just going about his day, and the time was very clear that this was literally earlier in that day. This did not take place. So his state of mind was not essentially was essentially not in alignment with when the event took place at night. So this is what he was thinking earlier in the day, and he was well prepared for it. And he, generally speaking, like I said, he's also not really fond of children. He has a disliking towards children, and there's also a tendency, just like I said, to okay, listen, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Okay, bluntly put, he essentially, I heard him say, if maybe one of them is like delicious, I can fuck one of them in the ass or something like that. Something really disgusting and vulgar. So he has also a tendency towards, I want to say, sex crimes or sexual assault or sexual abuse towards minors, and yeah, he had a plan in his head. I'm going to help. What was it again? I'm going to help Damien later on with the blah blah blah, etc. And yeah, that's essentially it. For the rest, I didn't really notice anything. Yeah, in relation to the question, I'm gonna ask my own astral body. The what I saw, the Damien echoes. Which spirit was it? But yeah, Baphomet. It was Baphomet. It was. I already heard that, but I was like, yeah, hold on for a second. Let me just answer this question. It was Baphomet. The ritual I saw in the beginning, with Damien, it was the brief flashes in its head. It was dedicated to Baphomet because I also saw that, despite the fact that it was only like half a second flash, I saw the entity and I was like, this is Baphomet. I saw the goat with the typical thingy, hand going upward and downward. I covered Baphomet a long time ago, years ago, so it's not an issue. So yeah, obviously I instantly recognized Baphomet, but it let's just say that ritual, like I said, it was done for all. It's not a constructive ritual. It's not something that will actually enrich you. I mean, I would say that that's a given based on what happened as an aftermath or as a prerequisite or just based on what happened overall. But it it's let's just say the intentions for that ritual or the intent behind that ritual was very, very misdirected. It came from a really bad place, not a hostile place, but it came from, let's just say, a place of severe mental illness. It's like when you do something for all the wrong reasons. Okay, what you did was neutral or good in essence, but it was done for all the wrong reasons. Okay, it did not come from a good place. It's like when someone crosses the street when they're drunk and they, by sheer coincidence, manage to stop right before a car hits them or something, or they manage to cross just in a nick of time. The action is okay, it's neutral essentially, but the person was just lucky in question. It's just pure misdirection. That's the best way to phrase it. But yeah, in any case, that's the entity that it was, that I saw that ritual in Damien's head, that it was devoted to. It looks like a typical satanic panic bullshit with everything being black and the inverted pentagram with Baphomet's alleged face in the middle. It's just a neutral miscellaneous goat head. You know, the typical stuff you'll find online that you can Google, usually like a heavy metal album cover or stuff like that. Those are the things that I saw, okay, done in a room that was completely black, and black not in like a, not like in a neat way. It was like a constructed black, a thingy black room, like painted with literally black paint, as in it's non-reversible. You would have to literally remove all the paint from the room. It would take quite some work to clean up that entire room. And of course, I'm not interested because it's not a detail, but immediately I'm also picking up on the fact that it is, it was done in a secluded location. This is not a place that you'll find in an urbanized area. This is a place that you'll find in a really secluded area where very few people go. Think of an abandoned building in West Memphis, in that area, West Memphis, Arkansas specifically. Somewhere there, okay, somewhere within Arkansas and near West Memphis, I would say on the outskirts or outside. There is some, for example, abandoned places that people don't go to or something like that. It could also be like an underground, not bunker, but an abandoned bunker of some sort, something like that. That's the environment that whole thing took place in. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Marino. That was really, really interesting. So as far as the way that you experienced Damien Eccles' mental state when you were delving into his mind, he did have a very extensive mental health rap sheet, and had recently been involuntary. I think he was involuntarily committed by his parents. And he described himself as being psychopathic, homicidal. There was a number of other words he used to describe his own mental state. And
yeah, like I said, based on his appearance alone, immediately, listen, the best way to describe his appearance is like, you know those hippie types that wear like these cheap glasses, right? That's essentially his, that would best mirror his state of mind. Someone that is like, yeah, you can clearly tell that the guy is not all there. He is like in some perpetual dream state, something like that. Let's just say someone that's like intoxicated and you're seeing the person like, it's like you can't look into their eyes because for a good portion, there is nothing there. It's like, metaphorically, the lights are on. No, metaphorically, one light is on in a house, but there's no one home. As in, literally, the house is completely vacant and empty. That's the best way to describe.
You said about his eyes, because he always wears sunglasses in every public appearance.
Yeah, I can see him without the glasses. Like I said, he has like a dead look in his eyes. Okay, when you look into his eyes, you'll be able to tell, yeah, this guy is like for 60-70% gone, 60-75%. This guy is mentally, he doesn't live in the real world. He lives in some alternate reality. Like the guy is mentally gone. Whoosh.
Yeah, and having sociopathic traits, doesn't in and of itself make a person evil. That really is a mental condition. I mean, those people's brains are structured differently. And just the difference is that there's this really horrific, unthinkable crime that was committed. And I just find the whole case interesting, and the sort of like how wildly popular Damien Eccles has become, and the celebrity support. Johnny Depp and Eddie Vedder were huge supporters of his. He had unlimited funds for his legal defense. And I can see, like sort of the man that Damien Eccles become, the way he acts now. He's very soft spoken. I can see, why people find him likable or attractive. But that's not I don't understand the reason for the frenzy of like
the popularity.
Like, he's innocent, and we, like there's no way for them to disprove that he did the crimes. He was never exonerated. He's not out of jail because he was exonerated. He's out of jail because he had a really good defense team, and they had the idea for him to take the Alford plea, which is admitting that they have enough evidence to prove that you're guilty, but you can still maintain your innocence. So that's how he got out of jail. He's not an exonerated man.
And what really disgusts me in this entire case is that, this entire case is like all about media and who is like on what side. Into that political kind of dick measuring, because people supported him because they thought that he's in a Bible Belt and it's full of religious people.
It's hilarious. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So to cut right back to the chase,
sorry. Manipulated.
Okay, you can continue. I'm hearing you now. I briefly didn't hear you.
That's like the most disgusting part of that. Like when I would listen to all of the people involved who were like talking about the case, nobody talked about dead kids, nobody talked about children. It was all about, is this teenager guilty or not? It to me, it even doesn't matter. What matters is like the fact that the 3 children got butchered and nobody is arrested at the end of the day. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, like the scapegoats in this whole media fiasco were the parents of the children. You know, the HBO documentary series that was made about it, that was sympathetic towards Damien Eccles, you know, sort of insinuated 2 of the fathers of the boys that were murdered as being the probable culprits behind all of this. And what those families went through is I mean, the families were completely destroyed.
Understandably.
The parents' lives were completely destroyed. And, you know, in all of Damien's interviews, he very, 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 very rarely mentions the actual murders. I've heard him maybe mention it like one time. And, but he has, you know, insinuated, well, what he talks about is how strong he had to be to survive in prison. That's what every single interview that he does is about, is like everything that he had to endure and overcome and stuff like that. And, you know, if he's an innocent man, I understand that, but how do you just not mention the murders at all? And he's like righteously indignant about the flaws in the justice system, you know, and the how barbaric it is that an innocent man can be treated like that. And yet he has accused 2 of the fathers as being the possible murderers, you know. And those fathers, there's not nearly sufficient evidence. I mean, they were never even suspects. I mean, they're beyond exonerated. They never were suspects. But if he's so sensitive to the issue of people being wrongly accused, can you imagine him openly accusing these fathers whose sons were murdered? Like, just willing, you know.
Yes.
It doesn't all add up. And
it does.
so I just have a lot of problems with the whole thing. And I'm really glad that you came to just sort of like help us, you know, put a magnifying glass on this. It's a very strange thing. And like we had recently had EA as a guest on the show, you know, and he's been completely deplatformed and canceled and everything. And but he didn't kill anybody, you know, like, I mean, he didn't. But yet Damien Eccles is enjoying, you know, being at the top of, you know, of the occult YouTuber scene completely. Like, he's wildly popular. So it's just interesting how people think and how they use logic in these things. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts after you're done. Continue.
No, I'm finished. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, before I give my answer, Dimitri, did you by any chance have anything else you wanted to mention?
Dimitri, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So to me, like, I also tried to tap into his mind, and what I got is that, like, that individual is really, so I don't know how to describe it in words, but he seems to be really dedicated to the dark energies he works with. And when you are extremely dedicated to those dark energies, which I am also to a degree, what tends to happen is like a separation from the outside world. And that separation gives you the ability to glitch the outside world to your benefit. And that's what I think he did. Like, he glitched reality so everyone is convinced that somebody like 100% innocent, testament to his ability to use magic. But doesn't negate the fact that the 3 children were butchered and thrown into a ditch.
Okay.
I don't. The forensic expert said that there is no elements of ritualized murder, but like, what is the bigger evidence of ritualized murder
That
than
was the defense. That was an expert that the defense hired. That wasn't what the investigators of Arkansas.
Yeah, but that was investigator in the documentary, like, of
In the
his defense.
documentary,
Is
yes.
that there is no like the element of ritualization, and I was like, did those people read like tying somebody back to the back of their, like tying somebody's hands to the back, throwing them into a creek in a grove, and cutting off their genitals? If that's not ritual murder, I don't know what is ritual murder. Like, it's literally by the book ritual murder, like how you find it in archaeological sites in those same positions. And I was
I have to respond to this. Sorry.
Like, he lied about the fact that there are no signs of ritual murder when there clearly were signs of ritual murder. Like, it all lines up. So I don't know. I was simply shocked. I was just shocked how people are so gullible. Like, it doesn't even follow a fucking documentary. They literally, from the beginning of the documentary, they say, those 3 guys are innocent and we will tell you why. And like, when somebody is arrested for something like that, you don't assume they are innocent unless you are their lawyer. And what bothers me is, why would someone invest so much effort into proving them innocent? Right?
Why? I have to make a point about the ritualistic part. So a serial killer that's just looking to get off isn't going to kill 3 boys at once. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to find somebody, they're going to try and get them alone. And like, the fact that it was 3 boys at once that's not normal. That's not typical serial killer behavior at all. And it absolutely is strongly suggests something ritualistic. There's so many things about it, including the candle wax. Anyway, I just had to put that out there.
Yeah.
Marino, do you have something?
Yeah. I'm gonna give my thoughts now on the whole thing. I don't mean this negatively, but in all honesty, of course, I'm not contradicting what you guys are saying, but from a personal perspective, I don't really care all too much about this, in the sense that it's occult or ritualistic in nature, because to me, I've seen this happen several times over the course of my life in the US. It's not the first time, and unfortunately, it's also not going to be the last time that someone will be killed for ritualistic purposes, provided that be the case. But what you guys are getting at essentially is, you want to know, and you're essentially asking me what either I think, or you want me to briefly take a look at why, for example, someone like E.A. Kowering, for example, gets shut down completely and deplatformed, and why someone like Damien Eccles receives so much backing, despite the fact that E.A. Kowering, as far as we know, he's not a murderer, and it's highly unlikely he is one. And Damien Eccles, the exact opposite, that it's highly likely that he is indeed the culprit, and so on and so forth. That someone that is essentially obviously guilty compared to someone that isn't. And you guys essentially want to know what's up with that, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to hear your take on that.
I am just like interested in why would somebody defend somebody who is obviously suspicious, to say the least.
For the sake of money. They don't care if the person is guilty or not. You know what lawyers are like? They don't care. They don't care whether you ate 5 children Okay, you hire the right lawyer, a guy that literally just says, I don't care whether you killed and ate your own grandmother. I don't care. For him, it's just, he has a specific mindset. He needs to get paid, and he just handles his case. That's why lawyers are called bloodsuckers. That's why. Okay. And unfortunately, some of the best so-called some of the so-called best lawyers are just like that. This is not a situation where you can say, hey, listen, uh, let's just say that generally speaking, the industrial and the commercial world, they have a tendency to be soulless. They don't care. They don't work based on conscience, because having a conscience equals no profit, or as little profit as possible, or even financial deficit. They care about making money. They don't care what you did, how you did it, etc. They just compartmentalize that and they rationalize it in their own manner. So yeah, that's just in relation to Dimitri's last statement. In relation to the difference between the two, I'm not using my power here just as a person. EA co-wearing, people have asked me that in my videos and live stream already, like long time ago, 2 years ago. You know, I'm a fast-paced kind of guy. So 1 year to me equals 10 years, literally a decade. So 2 years ago was literally 2 decades ago for me. And I told people, yeah, EA is legit. Personally, what I dislike about EA is, and not that I dislike it, but let's just say I academically disapprove of it. But yeah, to each his own. I don't really have an opinion on that, or a serious opinion. I just don't. Is that he essentially has a tendency to sensationalize for commercial and financial and industrial benefit his material. But especially when I was a beginner, I worked with a couple of spirits from EA's, a couple of his workbooks and whatnot, especially called Kingdoms of Flame, if I remember it correctly. 2 spirits. Salashash, which falls under Azazel, Infernal Spirit Salashash, and who was the other one again? I think I briefly, as a beginner, tried Ladderlock as well, and another one, but I can't put my finger on it. But bottom line is, EA, his stuff has merit. I work with these spirits, and everything was a-okay. These spirits were effective. They were, generally speaking, just the way EA described in his books. And yeah, just like I said, purely personal. I'm not using my power or intuition or anything here. EA got deplatformed because he simply rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. It can happen to anyone, regardless of who you are. It was on the BBC. It was on several news outlets, but I remember because as an example, I have that video embedded in one of my articles from the BBC. A guy, I think he was Indian or Pakistani or something. He completely misunderstood something that EA said in one of his ritual workbooks, and he went out in the UK, in England, I think. He killed 2 girls as a means of sacrificing them to lose the future of Hokal, if I remember it correctly. So yeah, you can imagine if something like that gets mainstream viewing, people aren't gonna say, oh, you know what, let me see. Nah, the guy is in the wrong. The guy is the one that essentially, he's the one that misunderstood everything. No, they don't care. Okay, for them, it's all about where there's smoke, there's fire. For them, smoke equals fire, metaphorically. So they literally immediately are like, hey, listen, the easiest thing, remove this guy. Okay, no, okay, petition YouTube, take his stuff off. No, the guy's a devil worshiper or something. They're not going to look at the details as, no, you know, the guy's not a devil worshiper. He's a ceremonial magician. What he does is legitimate, blah, 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 blah. You know, this person simply completely mistook what he said, etc. And you name it. If I even give someone advice on weaponry, for example, someone asks me about guns and whatnot, and I describe in detail which guns are the most effective and which guns essentially have the best killing power. That obviously, that doesn't mean that I'm responsible for the guy going out and shooting someone. But my point is that people will try to spin that narrative. And if it's people that have a big budget and backing, listen, we live in an we're like in the age of authoritarianism. Okay, the age of Aquarius technology is over. So you can expect stuff like this to happen. Nowadays, they don't need anything. They don't need any kind of provocation or anything whatsoever. Okay, they just need casus belli, which is a reason to take you offline. The reason doesn't have to be legitimate or valid in any way. If there is just one thing that rubs the wrong person with the right amount of influence and power wrong, it does not matter what you say or do. And in EA's case, that's what happened. It's just misfortune. That's all I can say from his end out. And that's why I honestly didn't even know about it. But someone told me, I think, what, a good while ago, I think a year ago or something. I think maybe 2020, 2021, something like that, or last year. And I was like, what? I was like, hold on, let me see this. The person sent me a link and I watched it. It was from the BBC. And I was like, huh? Holy crap. I was like, wow, really? So they really just purged EA? I was like, let me see. YouTube channel. Wow, terminated. I was like, okay, yeah, no, they really took him offline. Okay. Okay. Thanks for the information, friend. And that's it. But that's it for EA. And as for Damien Eccles, in his case, honestly, it can be a variety of reasons. But like I said, it's not about being right or wrong. The point in case is based on the case, the way you described it, Danielle. He simply, again, he had enough backing and enough support, and unfortunately, the world keeps growing more corrupt at an ever-changing pace. So that alone is enough to essentially see to it that he stays out of prison. They're going to stretch it as long as possible. They're going to make it as complicated as possible. Point is, if enough powerful people are on his side, then, let's just say in the world of today, if enough powerful people are on your side, you can be a demon and they can literally pass you off as an angel. And what's even worse is that so many people in the world out there, unfortunately, stupidity is like a black hole, mankind's stupidity, and people are just offensively stupid nowadays. Really, it just hurts that they lack basic logic even. It hurts someone like me. I try to not think about it. I'm like, oh boy, people are so fucking stupid that it just offends me. Notable events in the past 10 years have definitely proven that, but I'm not going to go into detail regarding that or specifically bring up which events. Yeah, with enough backing, you can be a demon and people will literally make you come off as an angel. And the thing is that the masses will also believe that you're an angel to the point where they will literally defend you out of sheer stupidity and ignorance. They don't know better, and they just jump on the crazy bandwagon. Let's just call it that. It's, again, you could carry out even a simple survey nowadays. Just have 10 people shout something for no apparent reason at, for example, a building, and people walk past and they say, what are you guys protesting? And you can literally make up a lie on the spot, as in, for example, a simple clothing store, a retail store, and you're simply saying this retail store has been accused of fraud. We want to cancel them, the whole cancel culture thing. I can near guarantee you 90 to 99% that group of 10 people by the end of the day will turn into 5,000 at least, 10,000 most likely. It'll increase because, and you can literally walk up to people. What are you guys protesting? I don't know. I just saw a bunch of people yell and I'm also helping them yell, baby. Yeah. And that people are literally that stupid. So yeah, from my personal perspective, that's essentially it. But yeah, I have no problem asking you guys. I don't need the mind elf for that. I can easily ask my own astral body. He's more than strong enough to answer any question I want, honestly. And I'll know if it's accurate or not, but it'll really be inaccurate.
Please excuse me, guys. I'll be right back. I have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, can you ask me how somebody can learn to tap into somebody else's mind?
I'm sorry. You wanted to know what exactly?
So I want to know, like, how is technique learned? You don't have to describe the process, just in general terms. How it's.
You simply will yourself. In the beginning, as a beginner, you close your eyes and you simply say to yourself, you focus on your target. For example, in her case, Danielle's case, you simply say, I want to read Danielle's mind. I want to see her current state of affairs. You express your intent, what you want to know. I want to know what she's been up to lately, what she's doing, etc. in general. And you'll be presented with a vision just the likes of which I described. And several things can happen depending on several factors. how strong you are, how strong she is, whether she spiritually agrees to you, essentially seeing the information that is actually been the case factually. And it just goes on and on. That's how it essentially works. Oh yeah, like I also said earlier, like I said, so sometimes it's only happened to me once. Okay, I literally dove into someone's mind. I read someone's mind, and the person was hostile towards me. And in the beginning, I didn't use my power. I simply pretended to be like neutral, the average person. And the person legitimately punched and pushed me out of their mind, as in, get the fuck out of here, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, like, so I'm just like interested. Can you read my mind? Like, you can roast me if you wanna. If you see something worth roasting, just like I want to see what would you.
Yeah. I can read any sorcerer's mind. I can read. The first time you guys interviewed me, I read your power level. I know how strong you are as a sorcerer. Not because I was interested, it just automatically was presented to me like an FYI, just so you know. And I am familiar with the energies you work with, not in detail, but the nature of your power. The first time, my own astral body told me that you're a power level 5 or 6, like a 6, yeah. You gradually keep getting stronger, but progress is slightly slow. It's really gradual, and the 6 was black, and I could tell that it was black in the sense of working with dark entities, like chthonic entities. You're generally speaking dark spirits, but not in a negative way. More working with infernal spirits or spirits that are of a dark nature. I can easily read anyone, a sorcerer, anyone. I've read high-level magicians even that were like level 10, level 12 magicians, and I was like, yeah, guys are strong. And yeah, I can easily read anybody's mind. I've done it with like different people. I've done it with people that don't know anything about the occult or magic. I did it with my former cab driver, and he was like, "No, you really were correct." I told him something about his wife that even he didn't know, despite the fact that he was married to her. And I told him his wife is an Indian girl, and or an Indian woman, and she's more like tan, like brownish. And I told him, "I'm gonna show you." I was like, "Show me something, etc., blah, 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 regarding his wife." And I told him, that's what your wife is thinking. And that's what she used to look like when she was younger. And he didn't want to believe it. I'm like, no, well, doesn't matter what you want to believe. I told you, period. I told you she used to be thingy, lighter skinned. That or the other way around. She's light skinned now, and she used to be like dark. And later on, he texted me through WhatsApp and he told me, hey, that thing that you told me, you were right. I was like, yeah, I know I'm right. And he was like, I asked my wife. She never told me this. And she showed me pictures when she was a little girl, like up to her teenage years and until 20 years old. She was like, she was just the way you described her. She was indeed like dark skinned. She was darker. Her skin complexion lightened as she became older. I was like, I told you. But yeah, what do you want from me? So yeah, anyways, yeah. Regarding Damien Eccles and thingy. I already know what the answer is. I can already sense it. Astral body. I'm looking up because he's like really huge, etc. Most of the guys I work with are huge, like 3-4 meters tall and whatnot. Tell me regarding Damien Eccles, why is he having such? Just summarize. Why is he having such an easy time compared to EA Kuering? Literal answer. You already know the answer, Master Moreno. Okay. EA Kuering was bluntly put simply shit out of luck. Just like you said, he rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. And his own magic and his level of proficiency as a magician, which is close to a power level 7, could not save him. But that's obvious. It's simply too powerful for him to overcome or was. And regarding Damien Eccles, Damien Eccles simply has a lot of backing, and regardless of whether he is guilty or not, which is like 99% metaphorically guaranteed, he has simple backing and he is going along with all of it. What else? Anything else? No, that's just it in general. He's just going along with it, and he He just plays the role of the victim sometimes, and at the same time, he does what his lawyer wants to do to counteract the prosecution. And at the same time, he's playing multiple fields, two fields, to exonerate himself from any wrongdoing, and yet without flatly out, just without flat out denying the allegations set forth against him. And his two accomplices, not so much, because they don't really have the literal exact same level of representation and backing he has. Okay, and what about the celebrities that back him up, the public and whatnot? The public is just jumping on the crazy bandwagon the way you explained earlier, just out of stupidity and ignorance and simply wanting to be part of shock culture, Master Moreno. And what else with the thing? What else with the celebrities like Johnny Depp and whatnot? With them, it's the same thing as well, shock culture, but they're more using him as a scapegoat because it gained a good deal of media attention, and celebrities by mere coincidence within the context of from a mundane perspective, within the context of the average person, um, they simply have no problem funding him and whatnot. Similar to other figures that they've done the same thing to in the past, despite the fact that those figures were also clearly guilty, in a matter of speaking. But in those figures, their case literally. Anything else? No, that's about it. So yeah, there you go. That's the answer. I already knew this.
Okay, so can you just like do my own? Actually, don't do that. We'll do it later next time in bigger detail, like my reading. But fundamentally, like, what are the words you want to close this interview with, Marino? Do you have any message for the people?
No, nothing really. My website is morinoravenberg.com, or you can just Google me. You'll find my website. Immediately it'll pop up. And everything that is there on my website speaks for itself, pretty cut and dry. And of course, you'll also find me on YouTube. And yeah, that's about it. Nothing else to say, really.
Yeah, thank you, Marino, for joining us. Do you have anything to close the interview, Danny?
Yeah, this was an extremely unique interview and discussion, and I hope everyone finds this interesting. I certainly did, and yeah, look forward to the next time that we can talk with you, Marino. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for having me, and until next time. Like I said, and like I told you, Danielle, I'm up and available 24/7, so it's not an issue really. I'm good to go anytime, anywhere.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you guys for watching, and see you soon. And thank you for enjoying this interview.